Hi, friends. Paula here, and welcome to Paula's Pearls. This is interview 3 about being a twin, what it was like to be an identical twin, and losing an identical twin. And to help me out is my dear friend Alexis.
Hi.
She's going to be interviewing me, so
Yeah.
all right, interview 3.
So, like I said before, I know a little bit about the twin world because of Paula and her lovely, beautiful sister Pam. And we've already spoken a little bit about how they grew up. And today we're going to talk about when Paula and Pam arrived in California, and a lot of big things were happening for them. So why don't we start there today when you first
right.
arrived?
Okay. All right, so we came out to California with an aching in your heart. And we had to leave our band Gypsy Queen behind, and Pam and I were very, very upset about it, especially me. It was like a divorce for me, and I was just like watching our videos and crying. And the reason the band didn't accompany us to California was because of the cost. From our manager, they wanted a lot of money, and that wasn't in the record budget for all that stuff. And so it was decided that we get new members out here, even though I was thoroughly against it and didn't want it, and Pam didn't really either, but. That's the way it was. But we ended up getting some really good players. We got Myron Grombacher, who played with Pat Benatar and stuff on
Wow.
drums. We got Johnny Angel from Tallis, Gary Montemere on bass, and we also got, what was his name? Mike Stone
Wow.
on guitar, who played with a lot of people. I think
Quite a
UFO. I think he's
lineup,
played with UFO,
yeah.
and he's played with
Oh.
Chris, the drummer from the drummer from Kiss.
Oh.
Yeah. And Galen Walker and my sister and I, and that was the nucleus of Cellmates. And it was a pretty great band, really, really great
And
band.
the two of you, which,
And the two of us. So we came out here, of course, the first thing we did was get one of those big-ass apartments in Hollywood. You know what we're talking about, those big apartments in Hollywood.
oh my gosh.
And
I mean,
it was
it's
the
like
only,
the Hollywood dream, right?
yeah, I came here and it was like the only apartment we could find. We had a doorman, the only decent apartment, and they had a doorman.
Oh my
So that was
gosh.
kind of cool.
That's like a celebrity. You have a
But it was in the
doormat.
bowels of Hollywood. You walked down the street and you would see hypodermic needles and stuff in the bushes. This was in 91, end of 91.
Oh.
And it was an exciting time. We had this old place to rehearse in Pasadena, this old theater
Wow, that's
to rehearse,
cool.
which was pretty cool. And it was
You have some footage of that, don't you?
yeah, I have some footage of it somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and we had some interesting times. And the funny thing about living in that apartment was when Pam and I were in the elevator moving in, we saw someone who recognized us.
Really?
And the girl
From
said,
where? From
said,
where?
"Aren't you two in Gypsy Queen?" She had taken pictures of us at one of our gigs in the Carolinas.
Wow.
And she actually showed me, she took us to her apartment, she had pictures of us, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well,
And,
you were pretty big stars over there,
Well,
as
you know,
I
we're-
remember.
we were, little rock and roll starlets.
They,
yeah.
yeah, no, totally. You
But
were, yeah.
it was pretty magical times, and
So what happened next? So you met the band. Did you do videos or what was
yeah,
the
we
next
did a
step?
record. Oh yeah, I should post that on this
Oh
link,
yeah.
the Cellmates video.
Oh,
We call
my
it
gosh.
Cellmates /Gypsy Queen because of course Pam and I are still beholden to Gypsy Queen.
Well, that's family.
Yeah, but we decided on the name Cellmates because Pam and I had just read the book Papillon, and we always were reading each other's books, and plus Cellmates, it's a play on words because obviously we shared the same DNA, being identical twins. So we thought Cellmates was a great name. Actually, looking back now, it wasn't so great.
Oh.
I mean, it was okay, but we just didn't really quite know what to call the project.
Yeah, but
back
isn't
then.
that? Are you from the same cell?
Well, identical
Does that
twins
work?
are there's actually 3 different kinds of identical twins.
Right.
There's fraternal twins, which are 2 separate eggs that are fertilized.
Okay.
Then there's identical twins that get fertilized. One egg gets fertilized by one
Okay.
sperm, and then it splits. And then there's 75% identical, which is an egg that splits. It's one egg that splits and then is fertilized by 2 separate sperm. A
Oh.
lot of people don't know that.
But is it? Oh.
So
I
there's
didn't know that,
75.
though.
Yeah, they're 75% identical.
Really?
Isn't that interesting? So
Yeah.
it's the identical
never
egg
knew
that
that.
splits and two separate sperm,
Oh.
or it's one egg that is fertilized and then it splits, and then
my
of course there's
gosh.
fraternal twins, and there's even been stories of twins. I love this one. Twins who've a woman's had sex with two different men.
Oh no, I've seen that on
Within-
TV, but I
within
never
24
met
hours.
anyone.
Yeah, within 24 hours, and then she had
Yeah, and they don't
baby
look anything alike.
of two different colors actually.
Right, and there, a little
How do you
story
explain?
comes out
How do you explain that one?
with either a big lie or you're getting in your car. But anyway, so the video. But what were the steps like? What was going to happen in this big change in your life, like touring, or what was supposed to happen?
Yeah, we did a tour, and our record was doing really well in a lot of spots. like
Great
like
record, by
Palm
the way.
Beach, our hometown of Buffalo, Wisconsin, Ohio, and L.A. It was so much fun to hear your song on the radio.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
especially now it was on all the pirate radio networks, and the one station here, Love Pam and I think we did 3 performances for them. In the studio. Just
what
live.
radio station was that?
Oh God, I don't remember.
I don't know. I know.
It was a pirate radio station that was here in L.A.
I was still stuck in Miami at this point.
I don't remember, but it was so much fun. And then we did the Palace, and
Wow. How
and-
exciting.
yeah, and we got to do a little gig with the Rembrandts on top of a building, which was kind of fun. And we had a lot of fun experiences doing that.
So, what happened to Cellmates?
Well, oh boy, all right. Y'all know what happens when you mix men and women together, right? My sister ended up having a thing with the manager, right?
Uh-oh.
I ended up having a thing with the guitar player. They
Oh,
didn't
the
get
guitar
along.
player.
Yeah, they didn't get along. And
You're mixing business and pleasure.
yeah, things just didn't
You don't
work
eat
out.
where you. Well. Anyways.
Yeah, and that's why men and women working together in bands, you got to be careful of that
Yeah,
shit.
it's a real
you just,
trick
You just
there.
really do.
Yeah.
And back then, back when my sister and I were doing it, they were only signing X amount of women a year.
Oh, sure.
We signed our one woman for the year. That was the record
Right.
company's thing.
You're
It
always
was a
looked
male.
as-
It was a
yeah.
male-dominated world. But later on in the '90s, that all turned around.
Yeah, because you had to work harder, didn't you, as women?
Yes.
You had to really prove yourself.
You really did.
Yeah, and believe me, I mean, incredible. It doesn't matter, and beautiful and incredibly talented, but you had to work twice or 3 times as hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, consequently, after that, the band broke up, which was horrible.
Yeah.
And my sister and I actually parted ways for a little while, which was the saddest time of my life. And I remember every day I would play the Lenny Kravitz song, Field of Dreams?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, but I.
Baby! Yeah, something
Yeah,
Field of, yeah. And I just would cry thinking about my sister, and I knew she felt the same way. But you can't keep twins away. I mean, you just can't. I mean,
Especially
I ended
you
up
two.
marrying the guitar player I was working with, and my sister ended up being with the manager that we had, because we had a really big time manager.
Sure.
But I can't even say his name, but he had one of the biggest celebrities in the world, but he ended up really being a shyster guy, and I could see why the other guy fired him. Had I known all this beforehand, so things didn't really work out quite that well.
Well, you probably wasn't supposed to for some reason, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. We never know why.
So meanwhile, my sister got another band down by 4, and I worked in a band called The Immigrants with Michael Cimbello and Jennifer Batten.
Right. Oh, wow.
And we did. So I did that for a while. But Pam and I, of course, still longed to be together, and we were still seeing each other, but we just didn't know what to do musically. We were just so sad and burnt out by the music business because we had gone through Gypsy Queen and gone through Cellmates, and it just didn't seem like we really felt a burning desire to do it
Sure.
again.
Sure.
And so I became pregnant.
You became pregnant.
I became pregnant with my first son. This was back in '97. And And my sister was so into it. Oh my God, she was so thrilled and so delighted. She knew it was going to be a boy. She already knew that. And she asked if I would allow my child to call her Auntie Mama.
Auntie Mama.
I said, well, that might be a little bit confusing. Let's think of another name. How about, so we thought of the Spanish name Tia, which is a very endearing name.
Oh,
for Aunt.
Tia.
So she
yeah.
became known to my boys and all their friends as Tia.
Yes.
Because my sister was very involved in their lives. She loved my baby so much. If we were out of town for a day or two, Pam would come over and smell the crib, and smell the sheets, smell the baby. She just loved him so much. And I actually didn't, I was actually happy that she loved him so much. And 14 months later, I had another child. Now, meanwhile, right after I had my other child, another boy, my sister got married. She met somebody finally.
Right.
And she got married, and I was so happy for her. And I'll never forget when she got married, she was looking at me, and I was filming her. It was a very private ceremony, just, her family, and then her husband's family were in from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept looking at me like, is it okay, Mama? Is it
Right.
okay? And that's the way she was looking at me, like, and I kept saying, it's okay. You can do
Right,
this.
because you
you
need
got
each
it.
other's approval, and because you're the
Yeah,
only
well, she
family.
was very against me getting married. Oh, my God. She was
Oh.
so against me getting married. She was so upset and distraught about it, and it was like my first defiance, my first sign of independence.
Sure. And
me
you were
breaking
always
away.
together since
'Cause
you were, that's
like I
all
said,
you
we,
knew.
We carried one purse, shared an apartment, shared a car, and it was that's the way it always was with us.
Right.
So it was devastating for me to get married. And looking back on it now, maybe it wasn't the best choice I made, but I mean, I do have my boys.
That's
so-
right. That's right.
so
that's
all
the
that
gifts
matters.
you got from it,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
So then she got married, and then you had your boys. Your boys are growing up. The two of you still.
Oh, we were still together. We would take the boys on holiday together.
Right. Right.
Because we
right.
both had men that were workaholics. So she and I would take the boys like to Florida. We'd take them to Canada. We'd take them to Pennsylvania. And they loved her.
Like
as
a
much as,
like a second
mother. Yeah,
really.
they were mad they got mad at me. They ran to
Right,
her.
to Tia.
And to this day, they're still upset about it. They still cry about her.
Yeah.
Wishing that she were still around.
Of course.
Because that was their other person. They went to.
Of course, and
And we since lost touch with her ex-husband because her ex-husband, every time he would see me, even though he really needed me after she died, he would cry because I was a constant reminder of what he lost because he really, truly loved her.
Yeah.
And I was that reminder. And so he just doesn't really communicate with me anymore, which makes me really sad, of course. But that's what happens sometimes.
well, I'm going a little bit off here, but I always think about how because you look so much like her, so what you look in the mirror and see her.
I do, and I'll look at myself sometimes, like even in making these little videos, I'll look, oh my God, that looks like Pam. And you do
Right.
it to me too.
I do. There's a lot of times.
And my other friends do it. They'll go,
There's
oh
a
my
look
God,
that you do, a certain look, a certain laugh, a certain cough, and when you sing, Pam comes out because even though some of you might not know that, but their voices are a lot alike.
Yeah.
But then there's certain things that she does. It's Pam.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I go, Pam, Pam, and then in her eyes, it's a certain look she gets, and it's Pam.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. And a certain walk.
Oh yeah, we know
A
that.
certain walk that she does, and I said, "Oh my gosh, it's the Pam walk, right?"
So was.
And I don't think she even has to. She doesn't try; it just is.
It
It's
just was.
They're two.
She had her own groove. So Pam and I, so we carried on for a little while, but then we had an opportunity to do some more music together. Meanwhile, we were doing sessions and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Jingles and some television shows,
Can
voiceover work.
Can I talk about
What?
what you did?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, just one of the things. It was a pretty big deal. Paula did that show called Friends. You might have heard of that, Friends. And she was the voice of Smelly Cat. And everyone knows that episode because Phoebe did a music video, and it wasn't her voice, but she thought it was her own voice, but it was Paula's voice in Smelly Cat. And you want to sing just a little bit?
Smelly cat, what are they feeding you? It's funny because when they messaged me over the tape the night before. The key was like either too low or too high.
Wow.
So I just kind of had to go in between. So I went really low and then I went really up there, you know.
Wow.
And it was like, I didn't really have a chance to, you know, do anything about that.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was fun. And Pam and I did all kinds of things like that. We used to work together for this one company doing trailers for movies and television shows. And we used to work with a couple other guys, and we'd have, you know, we had a blast doing it. So we still got to, you know, do that sort of stuff. And then we got an opportunity to work with Jack Mack and the Heart Attack.
Right.
We, you know, of course, we scooped it up, and we had a blast doing it. I mean, it was so much fun because the two of us got to still travel and be together. And it's funny because, you know, even though we got 2 hotel rooms, we'd always tell the manager of the band, we only need 1 room.
Right.
We only need 1 room.
You wanted to be together.
We wanted to be together, and we wouldn't even like sleep in the 2 beds. We'd share 1 bed.
Yeah.
You know, because we didn't, you know, we just wanted to cuddle and be together.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that was our thing. So we always got to have our little adventures together, and you know, travel to Philadelphia or Orlando or wherever we went.
It wouldn't feel normal if you weren't together.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah.
So we were still grateful and thankful that we had that together, and then we both went into yoga. I started my yoga teacher's training.
Sure.
And it wasn't even, it was accidental. I went to my 3rd yoga class, and I'll never forget the teacher said, you know, I'm going to be having a teacher's training class. And for some reason, my hand went up. I'm like, why is my arm going up? I couldn't understand it.
Oh,
You
my
know?
gosh.
But my arm went up. And so I did teacher's training, even though had no idea what I was doing. And I had to start from like a real beginner. Lots of studying. We had to study all the sutras and anatomy and all sorts of stuff.
And you're a natural, though.
Oh,
It
I
comes
loved it.
naturally.
I loved it. And so my sister said, you know what? I want to do it too. I was a little bit mad at her. I go, can't I have anything to myself? I was a little mad
Well,
at
that's
her.
part of a twin thing, though.
Yeah, I was
isn't it?
like,
you
damn.
want to be an individual.
Can't you do something else? But our idea was to do retreats together. That was our idea. So, so she went into yoga teachers training, and actually our first teachings were together. We would teach together, and it was kind of difficult because like, you know, okay, she starts, I take over here. It was like a little bit.
Right.
A competitive thing
well,
too.
it's kind of a song, like you do
And it's like-
songs when you do songs.
Yeah,
right?
It was like we had to share, and it was like, okay, but we loved it because we loved servicing and helping people. So it was we really enjoyed it. Then we both started getting our own gigs, and really, and the whole idea was we were going to do retreats one day, and that was going to be another part of our thing. Meanwhile, we put together a band called Mrs. Robinson, and Mrs. Robinson was a corporate band with really, really great players in it, and we would do things like we would do Heart, we would do
You dress
Chrissy
up, though,
Hynde.
right?
Yeah, we'd dress like Chrissy Hynde, Stevie Nicks, Joan Jett, you know,
Wow.
all sorts of things. Then we'd do different eras. We'd do 80s.
Did you do the B-52s?
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like
even a couple
that?
times. We mostly did the 80s. People requested that genre the most, the 80s music, which was fine with us because we knew that pretty well. And then people wanted, you know, so they wanted rock, or they wanted classic rock. Or
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, or
'cause
they-
they're the best at Led
and
Zeppelin.
actually, we got a couple times requests for 50s stuff, which was like,
Oh.
that's my dad's music, but
You're
still.
right.
But still, you know, we did it and we pulled it off, you know, and Pam and I had to get saddle shoes and the whole bit.
Oh.
Ugly clothes they had back then. But, you know, so we were really thankful and happy to do that. And, you know, it
And you did some big venues, too, together.
Yeah, we did. And we got to, once again, we got to travel.
Everyone, and you know what? Everyone knew them as well. Everywhere they went, everyone knew
Oh,
them.
yeah, I mean, like in town, Pam and I would go, or they either know us from gigging or from yoga.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone knew them. And they were so lovely everywhere they went, meeting everyone. They were so kind. And everywhere they went, it was like, oh, you know, they were so happy to see them because they gave so much of themselves to people, and not just singing, but just of themselves, you
Right.
know, to make people feel good.
Yeah.
Right.
So this was a happy time in our lives. This was, you know, probably, you know, up until 6 years ago until she passed. Pam passed
6
about
years.
5 years and 8 months ago, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, it was right up until she died. We were, you know, still doing our gigging and still going on our adventures and teaching. And so we decided we were going to start our first yoga retreat. And we each, Pam and I together, we had such strengths. Because where she lacked, I was stronger. Where I lacked, she was stronger.
Right.
So the deal was I get the people together for the retreat. And she was going to do all the logistics, you know, book the travel, book the venue, you know, that we were going to host the retreat at, and etc. So, and she was so into it. She was so into it. So we had a group of ladies that were going to meet us in Niagara Falls, Canada.
Right. Right.
And I'll never forget, this is so significant because we fighted over the date. Pam really, really insisted that we have the retreat on October 14th.
Right.
And I kept telling her, look, I think that's a little bit too late. It might get a little cold because we plan on doing yoga in the park and whatnot too. And taking the ladies on the Maid of the Mist and all that sort of stuff. It might be a little bit cold. And she kept saying, that is the peak of leaf peeping. I'm telling you, that's the best time to go. And we had an argument about it, and I gave in to her, as I did often.
Well, she got her way.
I said, okay. So she printed up the brochures and everything. So it was October 14th. So Pam and I arrived a few days ahead of time so we could go there and check out the schedule and check out the venue and make sure everything was good with the Maid of the Mist and the park and all that stuff. And she wasn't feeling too well, and I kept asking her, listen, should we take you to the doctors or hospital? And she kept saying, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. And she had diverticulosis, right, which she was supposed to get operated on when we returned. The doctor should have never A-okayed her for that journey. My doctor said I would have never allowed her with those symptoms she had to go. But I think Pam didn't want to disappoint me.
Of course she
And I remember
didn't.
we had the conversation before I left. Are you sure it's not too late for us to cancel? She goes, no, we'll be okay. And she goes,
was
but
a
I
tough
mostly,
woman.
yeah, she goes, you're going to have to do most of the yoga and I'll do like the meditation and stuff. I'm like, okay, all right. She goes, because I'm just, can't do too much with the body right now. And I'm like, okay. So I noticed her getting weaker and weaker, and I was getting a little bit scared, but she kept saying, I'll be okay, Paula. You just got to handle the big load of it. I'm like, okay. So I'll never forget the morning we woke up to go pick up our ladies at the airport. I looked over at my sister. We had shared the same bed. I looked over at her, and she was on her iPad, and she just told me she watched an amazing movie, which was an affair to remember. And I realized now she hadn't been to sleep at all that night.
That's
She hadn't been to
strange.
sleep. She was concerned about me getting my rest because she knew I was going to have to carry the heavy load. So I'll never forget. I gave her an emergency drink, and I gave her some yogurt. And we went to the car rental place because we needed to rent one of those big passenger vans. And my father was with us because he was going to help us with the luggage and getting the ladies there and whatnot. So I'll never forget, we were there dealing with getting the van, and Pam stands up and looks at me and gives me a really strange look. I'm like, what, honey? And she walked outside, and I followed her, and I go, are you okay? And she goes, I just need to be alone for a second. I'm like, okay. So I went back in, was dealing with getting the van, and I turned back around, and I look, and I don't see her anymore, so I won't go outside, and she's lying on the ground on her hands and knees in child's pose. And I touch her head, and I turn over, and she starts throwing up. I'm like thinking, oh, she's going to have to get her operation now. That's what I'm thinking. So I was very calm. I didn't want to upset her. I walked in the woman. I said, listen, we need to call 911. Meanwhile, my dad was getting gas for his vehicle, and he was on his way back to the car rental place. And he pulls in just as the ambulance is arriving. So meanwhile, I had women flying in at the same time to meet us at the airport. So I'm figuring, all right, my sister's going to have to do this surgery. I'm going to have to do this by myself. And I wasn't thinking it was that big of a deal.
Course,
I was
no.
worried sick about her, but I thought, okay, she'll be okay. So I see my sister off in the ambulance. I told her, I'll be right there as soon as I can. I got to pick up the ladies. So I go pick up the ladies. While I'm driving to pick up the ladies, my dad calls me and says, look, she's having a heart attack, and we're taking her to a different hospital. I'm like, what are you talking about? We don't have heart problems. A heart attack. It turns out Pam had a heart anomaly in her heart that happened in the womb that we didn't know about. Now, you can live your whole life with it, but if you got another underlying problem like she did with the diverticulosis, it just was the perfect storm. And so, my dad's saying they want her husband's number. I'm like, what?
Oh my goodness.
So meanwhile, I meet these women, and they all come down. They all have their yoga mats, and I'm looking at them as they're coming down. Their happy faces, and they see the look on my face. And all I said to him is, look, my sister's having a heart attack. I've got to go. Can you imagine these women just flew across the country? And I go, here's the name of a hotel. I'll call you guys in a little bit.
I don't even know how you were just even talking.
I don't know either. So I flew to the airport. I flew to the hospital. I don't even know how. I don't even remember. Honestly, I really don't remember driving there. I get there, and they stick us in this room, and they're not
Was it
letting
you
me.
and your father?
My father, and I think my stepsister. Yeah, she was there, and also my dad's wife, Carol, MC, my mother, Carol, we call her. And I was like, what's going on? Why aren't they letting me see her? And all I got was, they're working on her. So finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the doctor came out, and he goes, it doesn't look good.
Oh.
I'm like, what are you talking about? 50 minutes ago, she handed me mascara. What are you saying? And I got to my knees, and he goes, well, we only have 5% of her heart working. She's unconscious. And I'm like, what? When's her husband going to be here?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, he's across the country. So her husband, was already making arrangements to come. And my ex was as well. And I'll never forget, I was just waiting on the couch. It wouldn't let me see her still. They were still working on her. And I'm pacing back and forth. I went pee probably 100 times, and I'm not kidding you. And I just kept sending thoughts out to her. You're okay. Everything's okay. And I don't even know where my mind was. I wish I had the spirituality that I do now back then.
Right.
Because I would have handled things very differently. And I just cried.
So many things happen at once, right? You didn't even have time to process.
And I remember there were surgeons outside the door talking to my stepsister saying, we'd like to operate, see if we can get rid of the buildup there. And my stepsister saying, well, if you do that, she'll die. And looking back now, I don't really know what was right to do. So I hear them talking outside the door. She woke up. I ran to her room. She was totally stuffed. Every orifice of her body was stuffed. She was on complete life support.
Oh my gosh.
And I helped the nurse get off her rings, and Pam was conscious. I wish I would have pried her eyes open. I just didn't think to do that.
Well, you're not thinking. You don't even know how to breathe.
No, so she obviously couldn't talk to me because she, had the big tube down her mouth. So I said, look, tell me what you want. I asked her, are you okay? And she shook her head, yes. Are you cold? No. Are you comfortable? She shook her head, yes. And then I said, is there something you want? She said, yes. And I go, write it in my hand. So I held my hand out, and she wrote a letter in my hand. And I go, C, O, K, E, Coke. She wanted a Coke. She wanted a friggin' Coke.
Wow.
And they explained to me later that happens because your sugar drops so immensely that you want the Coke.
Yeah.
So I have to remain very detached when I talk about this.
Of course.
If I start getting into...
It's like you're telling a story that happened to someone else, probably.
Yeah, so they did not expect my sister to wake up. They did not expect it. So they were like, what do we do now? They really thought she was going to die. So my stepsister said, right, I'm calling Scripps Hospital, which was a hospital in Rochester, New York, a little over an hour away. And they do artificial hearts and, heart transplants and whatnot. So she was really good friends with the doctor there because she also works in the medical field. So the doctor came out the next day, as long as her vitals were working, and he said, I'll never forget, they were going to transport her. And they had to do some minor surgery on her heart to do something. I don't really remember exactly what it was.
Is that what they were bringing her there for that?
They had to get her stabilized before they could bring her to Rochester. And they said, we can't fly her there. She's on too much support. We're going to have to drive, but we can only go like 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
To drive her there. So we flew there. So wait, the doctor A-okayed it, and I'll never forget, I looked at him, I go, so do you think it's going to work, Doc? And he goes, well, I don't plan to lose. So my sister and my sister, our best friend Mindy, who also flew in from Florida, and my ex, and my sister's husband, we all drove to Rochester, New York, and they put us up in these accommodations next door to the hospital. And we went to this little diner while we were waiting for her to arrive, and I remember it was such a great little meal we had at this little trailer-looking diner, and we were so excited because we thought, she's going to make it, she's going to pull through, it's going to happen. And we got really excited. But we didn't realize, that things were not going to be that way. So we find out, we get a call that she's arrived at the hospital. So we get over there, and we find out that she's had some episodes while in transport. I'll never forget the woman nurse saying to me right in front of my sister, we're going to have to cut off her leg tomorrow because that's where they had to run this big tube to get her heart working. We have to cut off her leg. She's not doing well. And I'm like, telling her, I go, why are you talking about her like that? She's not here. I go, no, right in front of her. I mean, why are you talking like that? I was so upset. So they said, go back, to your room next door, and we're going to work on her some more, and we'll call you guys in a little bit. I didn't want to leave her, but there was like 6 people were standing around working on her, and I just didn't know where to go. They were all just working on her. I just told her I loved her. I said, make yourself well and everything. And So they called us up a couple hours later, and they left me sitting there forever while my sister's husband was talking to doctors. They call us into this big room, and I get the news that that's over. And they said, look, now all her organs are failing. We could keep her alive, but she's going to have clots all over, and she'll never be the same person she was. We're going to have to cut off her leg like this afternoon. And I looked down, and when I forget, with tears streaming down my face, I go, will she ever be able to sing again? Or do yoga again? He looked at me, no. And I'll never forget my sister telling me, if anything ever happened to me, and I got to keep alive on life support, please pull the plug. I don't want to be alive, please. And I always laughed. Oh, stop it. I'd always laugh, stop it. It's like, Dad, did she know? She even said to my father at one point in Buffalo, she goes, wouldn't it be funny, Dad, if I came here to die where I was born?
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that weird? My dad never told me that. I didn't find that till later. So we decided right then and there to pull the plug, and I'll never forget, we were all standing around, we held hands around her, and they pulled the plug, and it just stopped. Everything just stopped. There was no continued breathing. It just stopped. And if I tell you my sister was unrecognizable at this point, she got really swelled up and looked like an Eskimo. That's like, almost like that's the way I can describe it. Her whole face changed. And I don't know why I didn't take a piece of her hair. I remember my best friend Mindy saying, we should take a piece of her hair for later, and I don't know why I never did. She told me that after the fact. And I just laid on top of her, and I just whispered in her ear, run free, I love you. And I'll just never forget, I ran out of the hospital into the front courtyard, and I just started screaming her name. And I just couldn't believe it. We were there for an adventure, and she's dead. I wasn't prepared for it. I just was not prepared. And
well, you never thought that would happen because you thought you'd be together and grow old together, because that's what you told me before, that you said you would grow old together.
Yeah, and I wanted to hurry up and get home to my boys. My sister's husband was going to stay there, and while she got they were doing an autopsy and everything else, and while they were doing the not the burial, I can't think right now. The cremation. So I wanted to hurry up and get home to my boys because my boys were so concerned. And when you know it, they friggin' find out on Instagram. Yes. Before I got a chance to even tell them, and I was so upset about it. I was so upset. But anyway, my sister's husband came back actually 2 days later, and they actually handed him her ashes while they were still warm. Because he had to leave. He wanted to get out. He had to go. And then, I'll never forget, I took my sister's ashes. He gave me the box. I opened up the box and I just started wiping them all over my face. This a couple of days after she died. I started wiping all over my face and putting in my mouth. And I didn't even look like myself. I just could not believe it. And I'll never forget, I went to his house and just like 5-6 days ago, there's her little jammies and her little things that she had just used. And it was just so odd to me. And unfortunately, a week after she passed, I had to start cleaning up her things because her husband wanted to move. He couldn't handle being there. So I can't really talk too much more about this, Alexis, because it's...
No, I get it. And I will say, I was kind of around during that time, what she had to go through when she couldn't even, hardly breathe, and she still had to stand. So I know that this is too difficult, and I can't believe she's talking about it right now. So she had to do things and face things that, and especially being a twin, I don't know how she did it.
Yeah, I was not ready for it.
No.
I just was not.
And it's still hard.
I wish I would have known 6 months before she was going to die, because I could have said all the things I wanted to say and, talked about the memories and this and that. And there's things that she took with her that I'll never remember. There's things I want to, do you remember this? And I can't remember.
Yeah, because she went suddenly, and you don't have that time.
The closure.
You don't. And so, I know there's more things you want to talk about, but maybe we should just do that another time.
We'll do a recap.
Yeah,
about what it was like.
We'll do. Because it's a lot. So thank you.
But at the same time, I just want to let you know that I was lucky to have that love.
Yeah, there's nothing like Pam and Paula together. But anyway, so thank you for letting me interview you on your own show and talk about your beautiful, your other half. and she's still in there. And we all get to see her through you. And so I'm going to wrap this up for Paula.
All right, and our next interview will be about my life after
Right.
losing my twin.
Yeah.
So, love and light to everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Paula's
you.
Pearls,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.